Bang, bang. What's going on, guys? Hope you guys are really excited about this interview. I really enjoyed it. I think you will as well. But before we get into that, make sure that you like this video so that more people on YouTube can find it. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And don't forget that BlockFi is the sponsor today. They've got 3 products you can buy and sell crypto on their crypto exchange. You can deposit crypto and earn up to 8.6% APY in an interest-bearing account, or you can deposit crypto and take out a US dollar loan against your crypto collateral. You can use the description right here, or you can go to blockfi.com/pomp to learn more. All right, let's get into this episode. I hope you guys enjoy this one. All right, guys, bang, bang. I've got Zach here with me. Thanks so much for doing this, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
For sure. So you are the only person I know in the world that was a solo founder and also solo employee of a business that you ran for multiple years. You eventually grew it to $7 million in revenue by yourself. What happened and how the hell did you do that?
Well, I was the only internal employee, but I had a lot of external help, working with, a lot of third-party agencies, a production partner who was overseeing our manufacturing. And so, was fortunate. I met a lot of helpful people along the way. And I was super sensitive to, hiring too quickly, and I wanted to stay away from raising funding. And so that just kind of forced me to be as lean as possible. And so I wasn't ready to really bring on talent until I knew I could sustain them and the business could sustain them. And so, yeah. And then we were fortunate. We launched a product that kind of resonated right out the gate.
And so during that 3.5 years, if you're the only internal employee, you basically are doing everything. What did your day look like? Were you just awake for like 20 hours a day, or kind of what were you doing?
Yeah, it was pretty intense. I mean, yeah. There's a lot, a lot of customer support stuff that ended up getting customer support got to a place where it's like, okay, I can't, obviously we need help there. Product development, marketing, touching a lot of different areas. And, it was kind of like doing part-time of what, we have our employees do full-time now, and just probably not being at a size where it required someone to be full-time. But yeah, kind of all day thinking about the business and trying to advance it however best.
Yeah. And so what was your background before you started Public Rec?
I was working in finance beforehand. I previously directly worked for a private equity firm. And before that, I worked in investment banking for a few years out of school.
And so was it just you had uncomfortable pants and you wanted more comfortable pants, or like what was the impetus for the idea?
Actually, a little bit. So, sweatpants never fitted me well, me being shorter. And so in college, I gravitated towards one pair of sweatpants that actually ended up fitting. They happened to be my mom's. And I was like, oh, why do these fit? Why do I like these more? Because they fit better. They're shorter in length. So I was like, why aren't, leisure pants, sweatpants offered in a waist and inseam sizing? If they were, they could fit better. It felt like a problem that other brands were ignoring because of the inventory risk and the investment, and like trying to do it differently. And so it felt like a way to differentiate the product was offer waist and length sizing for leisure pants.
For sure. And so when you go to launch this thing, you have a Kickstarter campaign, from my understanding, and you do 6 figures in revenue through that Kickstarter campaign. Why Kickstarter, and kind of what did you do to increase the odds of it being successful?
Yeah. At the time, Kickstarter felt like a good place to really test the market immediately and get feedback, understand if the message was resonating, if people were interested in the product at all. And then also garner some PR. At the time when you were having success on Kickstarter, and it still is, but it's a very public display of your business, and everyone can see the number that you've raised. And it's like, oh, this company, they have credibility because they did this much on Kickstarter, or it's, it's resonating with other customers. Maybe I should check them out. And so, yeah, I spent 6 months in advance of really dialing in the campaign, making the video, having a final prototype, and feeling good about where I was with the manufacturer and the content and the story. And then also, reaching out to writers in advance to kind of tell them this was coming and hope that maybe they may be interested enough to write about us.
For sure. And so when you think through kind of where you've evolved to today, how do you describe Public Rec and what you guys are doing?
We're a leisure apparel brand, mainly direct to consumer online, making super comfortable clothes you can still feel good about wearing outside of the house. Yeah, we, I can go into it more throughout this, but yeah, we spend a ton of time making product and sourcing fabrics and making sure that whatever, we're coming out with is different and better than what's out there today.
And when you think through the business, being D2C, obviously, I think has kind of swept through a bunch of these different industries, but it seems like every D2C company eventually tries to get into physical retail, retail locations. Why stay D2C for the most part?
Yeah. I think it was kind of just out of what was working and like where we felt the scale, like, we were fortunate that the message was resonating kind of as we scaled our marketing budget digitally. And so I was like, let's just keep doing this. We spend $1, we get, $2.50, $3 back in revenue. This is great. This makes sense for the business. It's profitable. How much more can we push this? Okay, we need to get more inventory to support how much more we can push it. And so it was kind of just like, just keep doing kind of what's working for the time being. We launched one store in New York. It was open for about 6 months. Unfortunately, we closed it due to COVID, and we kind of walked away from it. It's a strategy we're reassessing and probably will pursue at some point. But the capital required to do it and the amount of revenue it can drive versus just kind of building the brand online, it just felt like it made sense to stay focused on the web business.
Yeah. And what I think stands out about the product that you've built is you are product first, right? This idea of comfort, it's all over the marketing materials. It's literally when you describe the company, when you wear the clothes, they just feel better. Where does that kind of product obsession come from? And then kind of, do you do anything inside of the company to continue to just hammer that home to employees, partners, vendors, et cetera, about that kind of focus on quality of product?
Yeah. To me, it was like, I only want to do this. I only want to start a company if, I feel like we can make something that's better than what's out there today. Cause we're starting with a no-name brand. We're only going to win and we're only going to attract customers if our product is great. And then everything else has to make sense and work. But to me, it's like, start with trying to make a product that we think is better than what's out there currently and that customers are going to enjoy. And so, the first product took a couple years to make, sourcing different fabrics, finding different factories, finally got to a place where I felt good about the fabric, the fit. And it's kind of been, that way since we've launched products. We try to think of things as core. We don't think of them as seasonal or discount them. And we try to, we'll spend anywhere from 18 to 36 months from idea to the products in our fulfillment center and ready to sell to our customers because I just feel like we don't have the opportunity to get it wrong. Like customers are trusting us. It's a leap of faith to try a new brand. If the product isn't excellent, they're not coming back. They're not talking about us to friends and family. And nothing else works if people don't love the product.
Yeah. And so how do you measure whether people actually love it, right? Obviously there's sales. Is there anything else that you guys look at to really measure how much people love the product?
We look at repeat rate. We look at, customer feedback. We're getting reviews from customers. We're looking at, how people talk about the brand on, different places, whether it be ads or responding to emails, the type of inbound we get. And then it's like, friends, family, all that's like anyone who's experienced the brand. It's always interesting to get their perspective. Usually it's, you got to understand that a lot of it can be biased because, if they're friends or family, sometimes they don't want to be critical. Then there's like the friends or family who want to be super critical, which is helpful. But try to listen to the customer as much as possible.
So when we talk today, you've got, double-digit employees, you're profitable, you've raised no kind of venture capital, and you've really built a great business. We started this conversation off with the idea that you were a solo employee up to $7 million in revenue. When did you know it was time to bring on other people? Like, was there a moment where you were like, oh man, I am overwhelmed. I really need help. Like what drove you to finally get another employee?
It was something I remember like up until that time, it was like a big internal debate of like, should we hire? No, I can keep going. I can keep doing this. But then it was like, at some point, I was like, this isn't sustainable. The goal is to build a big brand. We can afford to hire someone and support that salary. So it was just, I think everything just kind of tipped to like, okay, if I'm going to keep doing this for a long time and build a big brand, I need to start hiring people, especially if the business can support it. So yeah, a few different variables kind of were all telling me, now is the time to hire.
I absolutely love the fact that you did that. Talk to me a little bit about the idea of not raising any venture capital, right? You did Kickstarter, so there was kind of some initial funding, but it really was kind of this pre-order model. Was it intentional not to raise venture capital, or did it just kind of happen? Like, what was that story?
I think in the beginning, I had saved a little bit from my previous jobs, and I had done the Kickstarter. So, I felt like I had a little runway to test out the idea and see, what could become of it. At some point, I raised a small round from friends and family a couple of years in to support, moving manufacturing overseas with higher minimums and to make more products than just the pants. But we were fortunate. We had pretty quick growth over the first few years, and everything was moving so quickly that it was like, I didn't think that raising equity would really change the path we were on. And so it's like, we're growing quickly. I already feel like it's as risky as, I'm comfortable with it as it is, given the pace we're moving at. So it's like, I don't want to put more fuel on the fire and accelerate the risk and maybe make some decisions that I'm not as comfortable with. And I'm happy with like the growth we're seeing. So in the beginning, it was just being okay with, the growth rate at which we were on and not feeling like equity would really change that path. Yeah.
Got it. And so when you think about kind of that path, would you go back and do it differently? Would you have raised capital? Or do you think this was the right way to do it? Would you be in a different position if you had raised capital?
I don't think I would do it differently. Sometimes I think about where we would be if we had raised capital, and would we be 3 to 5 years ahead of where we are today? But no, I mean, I chose the path, and I have no regrets about the path, and I think it's been right for us as a company. The one thing is like, there are some brands that end up raising a ton of capital, and then they maybe find out that, sometimes the financials don't make sense and they're scaling on financials or metrics, KPIs that don't make sense. I do think that we kind of have, we're fortunate we have this product and we have KPIs that kind of make sense now to scale, and, financing might kind of change where we are today. But it was a good path for us, and I would pursue it again the same way.
Yeah. Talk to me about your supply chain. Obviously, with COVID and kind of everything that's happened over the last year, I'm assuming that there was a ton of issues there and that you had to navigate. But just maybe explain a little bit about how the supply chain set up and then what you've had to navigate over the last year.
Yeah, we make everything. Most of our stuff is made in Thailand, Indonesia, and Peru. When COVID hit, we had a decent amount of inventory of kind of all of our products. So we didn't have a lot of POs that were coming. So it wasn't like we needed to shift, and slow down POs. We also, we found out kind of later throughout COVID, we hadn't really tested what the capacity levels were at our factories because we weren't really placing a bunch of orders. And so something that we experienced was after the holidays, we had a good Q4. We had an encouraging holiday. And we wanted to order more. We found out kind of November that stuff that was supposed to hit end of December wasn't going to hit, and it was going to be 6 to 8 weeks delayed. And so Q1 this year, January and February, we were out of product in a lot of our core SKUs because of factory delays. I think something that we experienced was a lot of our factories slowed down last summer. They laid people off, unfortunately, and they didn't have the same capacities that they used to have. And then a lot of brands, I think, started seeing success. Q4 last year, we're starting to ramp up. And the factories no longer had the same capacity, so they couldn't keep up. And so, it's been difficult for us the last 4 or 5 months, having product on hand, feeling good about continuing to keep product on hand. I think we're now at a point that will be hopefully good through the rest of the year. But yeah, it's been a challenge for sure.
And part of having a really strong supply chain, not having raised capital, really kind of working your ass off in terms of those first couple of years. One of the benefits of all of that is you're profitable. You've been profitable for quite a while. Talk through maybe the pros and cons of being profitable early. Did that change some of the decision making that you may have made otherwise? And then how have you seen that as an advantage as you've built the business over the last few years?
I think so. The advantage is we get to make our own decisions on where we want to go and what we want to do for the most part. We're not beholden to an investor. We're not beholden to trying to, get more money from, an outside person, institution, whatever it may be, which has been super helpful in terms of we're operating the business on a daily basis. And so everyone internally, the team now today, we're making decisions on what we think makes sense for the business, and we're able to execute it without feeling like, we need to check with someone or we need to do something differently. I think it's given us a little more room. I think it's kept us disciplined in how we think about marketing and where we want to go. And, the con or the drawback is maybe that we've been less aggressive in our marketing. And so, maybe we haven't grown as quickly as we otherwise would have if we had, a bunch more capital to try to test things. But, obviously with the testing, you find out what works, you find out what doesn't. We've been able to test a good amount. But yeah, maybe, the outside capital help makes us accelerate our testing a bit more and, allows us to do things that we would find out that do work for us that we've been maybe hesitant to do.
Talk to me about the changes in consumer behavior that you've seen through the last 12 months, COVID, the economic crisis, et cetera. Are there specific things that stick out in your mind that maybe other people aren't aware of?
Yeah. Although people may already be aware of it or, have heard it from others, mid-March up until really May, it was very slow for us, and the website fell off in a way that it was when you're experiencing it, we don't know what's going on with COVID. We don't know how long it's going to last. And it's at a point where it's if we keep seeing revenue like this on a daily basis, I don't know how long we can survive. Is this a 6-month, a 12-month thing where just, people aren't spending or buying our clothes? And so that was super scary. We started to see an uptick throughout the summer. We saw people buying a lot of shorts. And then, the fall was pretty good. We saw a slowdown for the election, but I think that's, outside of COVID, we probably would have seen that. And then we had a good holiday season, which I remember even going into Black Friday and Cyber Monday, not really knowing how it was going to go. And then, seeing what the performance was like and seeing what the, consumer was buying, and that, so that was exciting. And then of course we find out shortly thereafter that, the product's not going to hit that we thought for the restocks, and now we're going to be out of stock. And so, I think it's probably similar to what other businesses have experienced in terms of a dramatic drop off in demand and then a slow rebound. And, it's feeling good now again. So.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible to kind of go through those peaks and valleys all in a short, compressed period of time, right? It takes the whole idea of being an entrepreneur and puts it on steroids when you've got the macro environment going so crazy. One of the things that I find fascinating about your business is this focus on comfort. But I got to ask, how do you measure comfort? Is it just you put the clothes on and you're like, yep, this is comfortable. Nope, this is not. Do you have a panel? Is it friends and family? Who is the determination factor around what is actually comfortable and what's not?
It's a good question. It's friends and family. I started a clothing company because I had a strong opinion in clothing and felt like I had a good barometer for that stuff. But of course, like I'm only one person. I don't have a background in clothing. So as prototypes come in, it's, putting them on different people, seeing what their reaction is, if it's friends or family and they're trying it, like forcing them as much as possible to be critical and like, not hold back. And then like, as we've come out with products and we get feedback on what people are liking and not liking, then we can refine and dial it in and do more of or do less of.
If you could go back and unpack kind of that first 3.5 years when you're working by yourself, what are the things that kept you going? Was it something that you were telling yourself? Was it the fear of failure? Was it just every day you looked for one positive sign to kind of keep you moving forward? Like, what was the thing that kept you going for 3.5 years by yourself? And really from a perspective of, there's a lot of people listening to this who they're early, right? Whether they're actually by themselves or it feels like they're by themselves, they're very, very early in that journey and they're constantly looking for the right signs that they're on the right path and they can keep kind of pushing forward. What was it for you that kept you there?
I think, every day was exciting to me. Every day was something new. I remember feeling like, getting to the weekends and still like doing stuff that I could do myself over the weekends, but being so eager for it to be Monday because like then I know people were online and they'd be responding to emails or be able to take phone calls. And so that, it still is so exciting, but that was, something that it was just like, it just didn't feel like a job at the time. It was like, I am so dedicated to this. I'm loving it. And it's like, still super stressful and, making mistakes and not doing everything well. And, but the excitement and then it's like, if I'm not doing anything, nothing's getting done. So it's like, the only way that I can keep doing this and sustain the excitement and, enjoy this is like, okay, we need to progress the business so we can, get to a place where it's financially sustainable.
Yeah. And was there a moment when you said to yourself, it's working? Like, was it the Kickstarter and you're like, oh, people want this? Was there like a dollar figure in the bank or revenue or like, what was that moment when you were like, damn, like I actually make this work?
So I think probably when I made the first hire, when I was like, okay, this is working. It's still like, even today, it's like, I'm checking the numbers constantly. And if something doesn't look good for the last hour, it's like, what happened? Is the site down? The lights could turn off at any minute. And I still fear that fear. It's still, like the goal is hopefully, something bigger and, hopefully just getting started, but yeah.
Do you watch the numbers on like an hour by hour basis?
Yeah, I do. It's not healthy.
No, I actually think it's one of the best signs of you really understand the business, right? Like I could probably ask you, what are the most popular hours of shopping versus not? And you intuitively just know because if you watch the numbers all day long, right?
Yeah. It's when I started so we're on Shopify and initially there's a Shopify app. So you could get a notification every time a purchase came through to your phone. And it was like a dopamine hit, like because I would know what the vibrate or the sound was. And now, I've turned that off, the notification at least. But yeah, I still check, very often. And part of it's like, now we're at a point where we have a team and like, if something's going wrong, someone will catch it. Our customer support team will catch it or, the person who oversees our site will catch it. But in the beginning was like, I may be the only one who catches it if it's like, the last hour we haven't had any traffic on the site, maybe the site's down or something. So that was part of it, I think.
Yeah. It's so funny. That Shopify notification with the cash register noise. Yeah, exactly. I've got two friends who are the founders of Adams, the shoe company.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I was over at their house 6 months ago, or maybe even a year ago at this point, and it kept going off. And I just looked at it at one point. They're like, Yeah, we're not shutting that off, right? It was just this thing of like, it was annoying, but it was like, hey man, we just know that like, things are working. And it's pretty cool to kind of see Shopify specifically, like their whole mentality of like arming the rebels, right? I've had Harley, the president of Shopify, on the podcast before. And I think that just hearing kind of their focus on celebrating entrepreneurship and really empowering entrepreneurs seems like you're like the quintessential story for a platform like Shopify, right? Where basically you didn't need a big team. You simply needed the platform. And once you had the tools, then you kind of get to work and can build a business and turn into something pretty special, create jobs for people, and really kind of embrace all of that entrepreneurship that everyone always talks about.
Yeah. Shopify has been a great platform for us. I remember in the beginning, it was like, Shopify or Squarespace. And at the time, it was like, it was hard for me to tell the difference between them. Some people were on Squarespace, and I feel fortunate that we went with Shopify. It's been a great platform for us.
Awesome. What's the most popular product that anyone buys?
Our best seller is the All Day Everyday pant, which was our first product we started with.
And when you decide to launch new products, what do you have to see, or like, how do you get the confidence to launch something new, knowing that very first product is still the most popular one?
Yeah. I think a lot about like what complements what do we already have today. And like, if we've got a certain product, do we have a top that you can wear with it or a bottom that you can wear with it? Then like on a higher level, I think about, where are we as a brand today? And when we launched the brand, it was, really focused on the leisure space, kind of trying to stay away from the active athletic space, thinking that space is more saturated. And then like on the other end of like, business casual work. And so we've kind of gravitated more towards business casual and work. And so, it's in buckets of, where does it fit within our product offering? And then, also what are we hearing from customers and what do we think makes sense to complement what we already have out there?
Yeah. What's your biggest regret over the last couple of years? If you go back and change one thing, is there anything that sticks out?
I know we've talked about, the hiring a good amount and, me being the only employee. I do wish that I had hired a bit sooner, both for customer support and then, our head of operations, who was our first hire. It just became apparent that like, getting good people on board and, helping the business scale in that way really opens up a lot in terms of, what I can focus on, what more we can be doing as a company. And so, yeah, I think that's maybe my biggest regret, is kind of wishing I'd hired sooner.
Yeah. And when you think about that regret, that makes me ask the opposite question, which is, what is your favorite memory from the last couple of years?
The memory that sticks out the most that is kind of funny now is we moved fulfillment centers. This was a few years ago. I'm still the only employee. And at the time, like I had a good relationship with the existing fulfillment center. I was nervous to tell them that I wanted to leave, ended up telling them. And I didn't even consider it, but I'd show up with a U-Haul truck and I, load the truck. They kind of help me load it. And then I drive it from New York to Chicago with my brother to a new fulfillment center. And it was like, I didn't consider that I could have hired someone to, help me load it, to drive. I hadn't driven a truck like that before, and show up to the new fulfillment center, get them. And it was like all over the weekend so that we wouldn't have that much missed time to fulfill orders. It's funny to think about.
But those to me, like that story specifically is almost like the fun of it, right? Like if you just hired people to do all that other stuff, like it's almost like you wouldn't have that story or that memory. And so sure, you'd have a successful business, but to some degree, like that seems to be the fun part of actually building the company.
Definitely.
What did your brother think when you were like, hey man, you're going to come with me and we're going to go on this drive?
Luckily he's an entrepreneur himself and he was, happy to do it. And yeah, I mean, it was fun. Once we had like the stuff loaded and we were on the road, it was fun driving together.
Yeah, I one of my brothers is thinking about moving, and we were just talking about this idea of like, hey, we'll just put it all in a U-Haul and then we'll drive, and it'd be pretty long 18-hour drive. And he literally told his girlfriend, he said, oh, we'll just like play music and like hang out and have a blast. And so I don't think that she thought it was nearly going to be as fun as we thought it was.
That's funny.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, I ask everyone the same 3 questions. You'll get to ask me one to finish up. What's the most important book you've ever read?
I don't know if it's the most important, but the one I've enjoyed a lot recently is Shoe Dog. It's relevant, but it's a book that like I've read multiple times, and then I'll read, parts of it just to like enjoy, like reread some of the stuff that I love the most. It's just for me. Yeah, I really enjoy reading it.
How much of it is that story resonates with you because it is, kind of an apparel like story or company, and some of the aspects of like the supply chain and the difficulties and complexities you resonate with compared to just like the entrepreneurship story in general?
A lot. There's a lot of similarities, and it's like, we're not Nike. I'm like, the dream is one day, 20 years, whatever, like 40 years. But yeah, there's a lot. That's maybe one of the reasons why I like it so much. It just feels like there's a lot of similarities between some of the problems he went through and what it feels like I'm going through.
Wasn't even called Nike at the time, right?
Right. That's right.
Second question is about your sleep schedule. I'm going to break this up. I want, what was your sleep schedule? And this comes from our friends over at 8 Sleep. So they've got this thermoregulation bed. I turn it super cold. My wife turns it really hot, and I sleep like a baby now, but I used to only sleep, 5-6 hours. What was your sleep schedule when you didn't have any employees? And then what has it transitioned into today?
It's pretty similar. I've kind of always tried to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It's been something that like has just been important to me. I know that like if I go too many days without getting that, I won't be able to function. And so, I'm usually trying to get 7 or 8 hours.
All right, you were way ahead of the curve on that one.
Yeah.
Last question, you get to ask me one, is aliens, believer or non-believer?
I'm a believer.
Why?
Yeah. Just like, seeing some of the data out there, the research, it just feels like, and thinking about how big everything is, it feels more likely than not that there are another species out there.
Yeah, it feels like probabilistically, yes.
Right.
What shape they are in, right? Are they intelligent or not? Is a whole different ball game. But it just feels like I even go as far as to say, like, I bet you Mars has some sort of life. It just may not be what we're all thinking about. The little green man walking around, right?
Right.
Could be literally cells or something. So who knows? I'm not a scientist, but I agree with you. I think that it's got to be life somewhere else.
Yeah.
What one question do you have for me to wrap us up?
I've got, my question is, what keeps you up at night? What do you think about, curious what,
This is going to sound insane, but this is like a new worry. I try to balance happiness with ambition. And my nature is to go 110% hard charging. I wouldn't sleep if I thought that was the smart thing to do anymore, right? Just go for it all the time, bigger, faster, better. But what I've noticed is like there's a direct trade-off between like that type of mentality and kind of pursuit with just peace of mind and like happiness. And so like where the balance is, I'm not sure, because if you just optimize completely for happiness, in some way you almost feel lazy. Like you feel like you're like not doing anything, which is almost the test of happiness. Like, can you do nothing and be happy? Right. But I think that that balance is almost one of these things where like you'll never actually get the right answer. But the constant pursuit of the balance between ambition and happiness seems to be at least right now, kind of top of mind. And it's funny to kind of hear you thinking through and talking about, when you started to hire people versus not hire people, whatever. Some of it is, can you, be ambitious and also maybe you don't have to do 100% of the work. Right? Like, does that kind of bring more happiness? Or if you got to manage people, maybe that actually makes you unhappy, right? Yeah. It kind of depends on the situation, the individuals, and kind of what you're trying to accomplish. But I think that balance is probably the thing that I spend the most time thinking about right now.
Super interesting. Yeah, that resonates with me for sure.
Why?
I think, similarly, it's like, can I be happy in the moment? Like, I feel like the brand is doing well and we've accomplished a lot. And, it's gotten to a place where, a year, 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been a dream to get to this place and see the numbers and have the employees. And it's hard to appreciate it and not want more of like, okay, we got to here. Let's get to the next stage. Let's get to the next stage. And it's like, I don't know. I think a lot about like, how, when do I feel like I've made it, or, we're a success, and what does that feel like? And yeah.
Absolutely. Where can we send people to pick up some clothes? Well, hold on. First of all, before you tell us, I have to say, I've got a bunch of the pants, shirt, jacket. I said, the shit is actually really comfortable. Like, I know you're saying it, and like you literally are the founder of the company, so you're supposed to say it regardless. But like, as somebody who I don't buy designer clothes, like I'm like a $5 jeans from Walmart type guy, literally just wear, black t-shirts, etc. It's super comfortable. And so anyone who's listening to this, who's like, I don't know, like completely unfiltered advice or feedback, like it's really, really comfortable. So where can people go purchase anything, especially the pants, if that's what they want?
Nice. That's awesome to hear. Very cool. Our website is publicrec.com. Rec is REC, like recreation. So yeah, publicrec.com.
All right. Before I let you go, you got to tell me where'd the name come from?
Wearing clothes in public during recreation, which was like the thought of it. And it was just like, at the time, it was a lot of back and forth with one of my friends who was, I was like, do you like this? And he would throw it. And so, I like the word public. And I think initially I tried to get public service and I couldn't get that clear through IP. And so I landed on public rec.
I love it, man. You're building an absolute beast of a company. So keep going. I'm a big fan. I wear the clothes, and anyone who wants, go to publicrec.com, and we'll have to do it again in the future.
Awesome. It's good talking to you.